708-889-5600.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
All right, it is Jeannie and Jim sitting in for Dan today. Here you go. This is a press release from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security dated July 9, 2026. ICE lodged a detainer requesting Governor J.B. Pritzker and Illinois sanctuary politicians to not release from jail a Venezuelan criminal illegal alien who was arrested on felony charges of kidnapping and sexually assaulting a child in Kane County, Illinois. Can't pronounce the guy's name. Velazquez Muro, a criminal illegal alien from Venezuela, pursued a 9-year-old who was riding her bike in Pingree Grove, forcing her into a nearby vehicle where he sexually assaulted her. The suspect initially fled the scene but was arrested afterward through forensic evidence on June 30, 2026. Velazquez Muro now faces charges of aggravated kidnapping of a child, predatory criminal sexual assault, aggravated criminal sexual abuse, and sexual exploitation of a child. And Jim, we continue to be a sanctuary state?
I don't even, the notion that they continually side with the perpetrators and against the victims. Mercy for the criminal is injustice to the victim. I don't understand this at all. But again, I think if you aggravated, I don't even know what that means. Sexual assault of a 9-year-old should come with a death penalty. I think that's actually too good. It should be torture and death, and we let him out of prison.
Well, the fact that they have to lodge a detainer asking the governor to not release him from jail?
It's crazy.
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Well,
again, they want this to be just loony world. Everything they do seems so crazy. Again, a buddy of mine and I were talking yesterday about the difference between conservatism and liberalism. It doesn't even matter anymore. It's just like us versus the insanity. I don't even know how to define it. That's not liberalism. It's not. I don't know what it is.
Well, it's like Trump said in his, State of the Union speech. The other side is crazy.
That's what I believe.
I think it's true too. Well, here to discuss everything related to immigration is Andrew Arthur. He is the resident fellow in law and policy at the Center for Law and Policy, and he actually helped draft major immigration bills, including the Homeland Security Act, the Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention Act, the Real ID Act, and the Secure Fence Act. So happy to have him join us today. Andrew, what is the state of immigration in this country, and are we going to be able to keep it under control if Trump leaves office?
Well, it's interesting, Jeannie, because we're actually, talking about two nations. When you talk about the state of Florida, where my old boss, current Governor Ron DeSantis, has authorized every law enforcement officer in the state to be deputized as a immigration officer under the 287G program. Immigration is very much under control. But when you talk about states like Illinois, New York, California, we see instances like the one that you're describing. And if you really ask politicians, if you were to ask Governor Pritzker or the mayor, why exactly do you have these policies? The real part of the real reason is they just don't like Donald Trump, and this is his signature issue. But if you were asked to ask them the philosophical part, and kudos to Jim for quoting Adam Smith on this, the 250th anniversary of Wealth of Nations, what they would say is it's unfair. It's unfair if, a kid from Kenosha, gets convicted of a crime, goes to jail, he's going to be released, he can go back into the community. But if that same person was from Colombia or Kenya or Qatar, then that person's going to be deported. That's going to be a special punishment that they receive. And in their minds, that's unfair. Believe it or not, that's the logic that they employ.
This is crazy. So when I look back at the 2020 to 2024, then the opening the borders, kicking it wide open, Joe Biden said he's encouraging them to surge the border. His words, not mine. What was the deal? What was the end game of having open borders? Was it just for numbers, for redistricting in some of these states? Was it for the illegals to vote themselves? What's your thesis on that?
Actually, Jim, I don't have a thesis on it. I actually know the reason because the Biden administration put it in a document that came out during discovery in a lawsuit against the state of Texas, a lawsuit against the federal government by the state of Texas, during the Biden administration. And what they explained is that the president had a dedication to diversity and fairness and equity. And for that reason, it relied upon legal scholars, the sort of legal scholars you would expect, to find that the immigration laws themselves were inequitable for many of the same reasons. Now, and this sounds crazy. This may sound crazy to you, which is why so many people cast about, is this about voters, whatever? No. The idea was that the immigration laws were unfair the way the Congress had written them. And for that reason, the president and Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas had to put the large prosecutorial discretion thumb on the scale to make it less unfair. That's really what it comes down to. Nothing more, nothing less.
Well, Trump talked about the secure border last night. Here's what he had to say.
Our previously wide open borders have been transformed into the most secure borders in the history of our country, with 0 illegal aliens being admitted to the United States in the past 14 months. That is 0. Nobody thought it was possible. We had the worst border in the history of our country, and now we have the best.
Okay, so you helped with the Secure Fence Act. Is that helping keep illegals out of the country?
It's interesting, Judy, because the key tenet of the Secure Fence Act wasn't so much the fence itself. It was a directive to the Secretary of Homeland Security that the Secretary have what's called operational control of the border. And that means nobody gets in illegally and, all illicit contraband is kept out of the country, which is a fairly, reasonable request by Congress. The unsung hero, the one name you're never going to hear when you talk about Trump's immigration policies, is a guy named Rodney Scott. He is the
he's
current
great. He's
current
great.
commissioner of Customs and Border Protection. And, as importantly, he was Joe Biden's first Border Patrol chief. He's the first chief to be the confirmed commissioner of CBP. And as soon as he was fired by the Biden administration, he wrote a letter to the Senate September 11th, 2021, in which he laid out everything that was going on. And he explained that experienced line agents were making recommendations and they were being ignored by inexperienced political operatives in the White House and in the department. And when Commissioner Scott, Chief Scott, I like to call him because, I still think that's a higher title. When he took office, he listened to the Border Patrol agents. He listened to the officers, the CBP officers at the ports. He found out what worked and what didn't. And what worked, he employed, and what didn't, he discarded. And so if you want to know why illegal entries are down 90%, probably 70% goes to Chief Scott. And the other 30%, strangely enough, goes to Mexico because the president used tariff threats against Mexico to get them to secure their side of the southwest border.
Imagine that.
Well, at the same time, you've got this birth tourism, rearing its ugly head, and you've got SCOTUS agreeing that, if you give birth in the state, in the country anywhere, and even if you're illegal, that new baby is a U.S. citizen. And Abbott apparently is calling for an immediate investigation into reports that a hospital in South Texas is marketing birth packages to foreign nationals. How do we get control of this? Is this something like the Real ID Act, like the Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention Act, all that happened in the wake of the 2001 terrorist attack? Is this something that we can get some bipartisan support on?
Yeah, absolutely. And the good news, Jeannie, is that the president can do most of this administratively.
Oh, good.
What most Americans don't understand is that, the most common visa that people use to travel, the tourist visa, can be used to go to a different country for medical treatment. And that makes sense. But, medical treatment includes obstetric treatment, gynecological treatment, prepartum, postpartum, and actual births. And right now, the State Department regulations say that consular officers abroad and CBP officers at the ports can't ask a woman if she is pregnant, if she is coming to the United States to give birth, unless they have a really good reason for doing it. Now, the State Department, Secretary Rubio, DHS under Secretary Mullen, can easily just add that to the suite of questions that inspectors ask at the port of entry. Is it intrusive? Yes. But, we don't really know how big the birth tourism issue is because nobody's looked into it. But anecdotally, we know that there are companies out there that are making millions of dollars to provide travel packages to people to come to this country. And in fact, the Wall Street Journal about 7 months ago ran an article that talked about how, Chinese tycoons are in essence hiring surrogates in the United States to give birth to their children in the United States, even though those Chinese oligarchs never enter this country. They simply send the genetic material that they need to the United States, and a new U.S. citizen is born here.
So, Andrew, I'm from an immigrant household, proudly. On our block in Palatine, there was like 4 or 5 different off-the-boat Italian immigrant households back in the 60s and 70s. But anyway, my point that I was going to bring up is that I'm fully believe that we need healthy, good, vetted immigration in this country, as I'm sure you do too. And how every time the other side points to us, they act like we're anti-immigration. What is happening with the administration regarding legal, vetted, high quality immigration? Are they against that as well, or are they for that?
Well, this is one of those things, Jim, where I'd like to see the president go back to his own 2018 State of the Union address. About 65% of all the green card holders, the legal immigrants that we have come to this country, come here because of family. They are the spouse or minor children of green card holders or citizens. We all agree that that's a good idea. But that extends all the way to a U.S. citizen's brother and the U.S. citizen's brother's kid. In essence, you can immigrate your nephew to the United States. And under a system like that, there's no guarantee that those people are going to bring the skills and ability to even support themselves, let alone grow the U.S. economy. Only about 7%, when you really drill down on it, of all of those green cards go to people based on skills. And I'm going to bring up a name from the past, and that's Barbara Jordan, civil rights icon, nemesis of Richard Nixon, first African American woman elected to Congress from the South. And she headed President Clinton's Commission on Immigration Reform, and she said something very basic. Absent compelling circumstances, all immigration to the United States should be based on skills. And yet, that's not the system that we have. In 2018, President Trump agreed to an amnesty for 1.8 million Dreamers, an issue that I know is very important to your Senator Richard Durbin. And in exchange for that, he wanted to move the United States more to a skills-based system. Now, again, that doesn't mean you can't bring your family. Family is one of those things that we consider. Your ability to speak English is another thing that we consider. But, we put a high emphasis on skills. So right now we have a mismatch between the workers that we need in the United States who are coming here and the workers that we actually get. And I agree with you, Jim. And, there are people, it is so, in fact, Barbara Jordan said, we object to anybody who decries controls on immigration as being anti-immigrant. If immigration, and she, knew this and said it a lot more eloquently than I'm about to. If an immigration system is incredible, the American people are going to turn their back on it. And we saw that happen in the 2024 election. We saw that happen during President Biden's term.
All
We
right.
need a credible, realistic, workable immigration system that works not just for the immigrants, which is what the current system does now, but for the American people as well. And there's nothing wrong with that because that's the way that you keep a strong, vibrant immigration system that brings new ideas, fresh perspectives, skills, and money to the United States. And so we really need to move to that.
All right, Andrew, maybe you can help me with this. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law are stuck in Australia. She had a green card. They lived in Australia for 30 years after COVID. They said, forget it. We have got to come back to the United States. He's a veteran of the U.S. Air Force. They've been paying federal taxes for 30 years. They own property in Florida. And because she refuses to take that COVID vax, she is denied getting a new green card. I mean, this is obscene. I know Riley Gaines was able to get her husband in. He had a similar situation. I want my sister-in-law back here right now, and I'm sick and tired of these people, allowing these illegals, the criminal illegals, to sit here and exist in sanctuary states. And then my sister-in-law is stuck in Australia. Maybe you can help me on that one. I think maybe I'll contact you outside of this conversation.
Well, Jeannie, keep in mind that I've been an immigration lawyer for 34 years, but I don't actually have malpractice insurance. But I get a lot of questions from people like you about people exactly like your sister-in-law. And this really is the irritating part of the U.S. immigration system. If you come here illegally, you get tons of due process, and I mean a significant
Yes.
amount. When we talk
It's
about these
disgusting.
arrests in Chicago, or this individual who was arrested for a heinous crime, there is a huge layer of due process. And, people protest the arrests. Well, the arrests are the point at which the due process begins. And, I am dedicated to due process. It is a hill that I will die on.
All right.
But, we also, at the same time, have this system that is unfair to spouses of United States citizens. They want to get green cards. They want to come here. And I'm going to tell you what I tell everybody who raises this question. I say this as a former congressional staffer and as a former associate general counsel at the INS, been on both sides of this. Best thing to do is to reach out to your local representative.
Okay,
they have staffers
Yeah, Andrew.
who do exactly that.
I'm sorry, I got to cut you short. We got a hard break here. I appreciate you coming on, and those staffers have been absolutely unuseful in this situation. Andrew, thanks so much. Resident Fellow of Law and Policy at the Center for Immigration Studies. We appreciate your commentary today.
Thank you so much. It's been great being.
All right, we'll be right back with Open Mic Friday.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing